really important event. And we're gathered here today for two really important reasons: to show our solidarity with the people of Ethiopia and to turn our words into action by supporting the humanitarian response. But today we don't just gather to discuss the challenges faced by the people of Ethiopia, but also to celebrate the resilience and determination of its communities. This side event took place earlier in the day, where IOM had the opportunity to participate through our Chief of Mission in Ethiopia, and it served as a platform to amplify the voices of these communities. There was a discussion around strategies for strengthening systems and accountability, enhancing resilience, and promoting sustainability throughout Ethiopia. Now, a shining example of this collaborative effort is the rehabilitation of the Semema water scheme in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. After about a year of disrepair, the community voiced their concerns about increased waterborne diseases and insufficient access to water sources, especially for school children. Through dialogue and cooperation, the water scheme has been revived, but not only that, it's also empowered the community by reactivating the Water and Sanitation and Hygiene Committee and supported the creation of a more resilient and self-sustained community. And this really exemplifies the transformative power of collaboration in achieving lasting change. And I believe we're all like-minded in this room in commitment to collaboration, cooperation, and in ensuring and supporting lasting and sustainable change. We know that the scale-up of emergency assistance needs to be urgently addressed. Ethiopia faces recurrent humanitarian challenges, and as we speak, almost 21.5 million people in Ethiopia are in dire need of emergency relief to survive. And yet, in spite of all of this, there's a glimmer of hope. The government, along with international partners, recognizes these vulnerabilities and is committed to addressing them through initiatives such as the new National Policy and Strategy on Disaster Risk Management. Additionally, the UN and humanitarian partners are collaborating with the government to deliver life-saving assistance to 15.5 million people in Ethiopia. However, the funding outlook is bleak, with an urgent need for $1 billion to sustain the response over the next 3 months and secure aid pipelines beyond. Today we gather for a panel discussion aimed at gaining a comprehensive understanding of this complex situation in Ethiopia. Before we delve into the insights of our esteemed co-hosts and panelists, I'd like to highlight a few logistical elements. Interpretation is available in Arabic on Channel 6, English on Channel 2, and French on Channel 3. The event is being live-streamed to the public on UN Web TV, and the documents related to this event are available on the web page. Please join the conversation online using the hashtag #InvestInHumanity. So now, let me first introduce our very distinguished co-host. His Excellency, Mr. Taye Aske Selassie Amde, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Federal Republic of Ethiopia. Your Excellency. Right Honorable Andrew Mitchell, Deputy Foreign Secretary and Minister for Development and Africa, Government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And I understand, Your Excellency, you will have to step out for a short period at the end of the opening segment, but you promise you're going to return?
I do. I do.
And she's my sister, but I have to go through this process of going through this long title. So, Ms. Joyce Muncia, Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Deputy Emergency Relief Coordinator at UN OCHA.
Thank you.
And we're also pleased to welcome to our panel Mr. Carl Skau, Deputy Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer of the World Food Program. Carl. And Ms. Sophie Gebreus, representing the Ethiopian Humanitarian NGO Group. Okay, so now, there's one other very important logistical thing. Up there is the clock for when you take the floor. A lot of energy in the room, a lot of people in the room. I'm sure we want to be able to make sure everyone has the chance to speak. So, Excellencies, I really count on you in keeping your eye on the clock. Okay, so now I invite you to watch a video of testimonies from affected people in Ethiopia.
ጉዳት በጽሕና እዩ ማለት
ከም ቤት ትምህርቲ እውን ቤት ትምህርቲ እዚ ቅድሚ ኩነታት ሞዴል ዝነበረ ቤት ትምህርቲ እዩ ኣብዚ ኩነታት ኣብቲ ሰንክቲ ኩናት ግን ዝነበረ ኩሉ ስኢሉ እዩ ቤት ትምህርቲ ምንም ነገር ዘይብሉ ጥሩሕ እዩ ኮይኑ ማለት እዩ
ቅድሚ ጦርነት ብጣዕሚ ጽቡቕ ኣገባብ መሃራን መሃር ነርና እዚ እምነት ኣብ ኬሚስትሪ ዝተፈላለዩ ባዮሎጂ ዓይነት ትምህርትታት ببيت فتنا زرع ببيت فتنا بأكل زرع ما بأكل زرع معتنا رأنا نتمهرنا نيرنا كاو بيت فتنا تروحيو لايبراري كمون حقست مصحفات بزح نيرمنا هذي اللون
شو كان دو بزعات تمرت خنحسبس لو ما عندنا نموت صباح زين فلطلع اوان يا نيره
قبل ما نودعنا كنا كنا لكن سنقاطنا نحضر
يا أنا ندعو معيد أنتم معي ما ينبوها أنا بين فلا معيد أنت تبرد تتكين حام فلا معينا الكنا أنا بين فلا
أوكي روبردكي أداري جو برتيجو أبري تكوك بقال ليه أرحتي تها وعدي برسين فل
بروح تصفى بروح تصفى ناي سلام ناي فقري ناي أندنت ناي تحقق كان ناي منمر ناي مسعام يرأني حارسنا خنتقو يرأني صلاتنا ونقيمم حدي قم نحنا ونقيمنا حدنا تسعمنا حيرنا بحدا خنوقف
دلاليو دكتور ناي مخان تسفى دليت علن زي كعب بقى كل جزء نص اخوين كهيوتي يمرحي سفلا صقمات يسعو خير سلازي نزم صقمات زيم فنصحناس تسفات عين قرص بالحساب
We will now move on to the distinguished co-hosts and panelists. Minister, Your Excellency, welcome. We're very pleased you could join us in Geneva today, and we look forward to hearing your reflections and to two questions of importance to your government. So first, Ethiopia is facing a range of humanitarian challenges driven by climate change and conflict, among other problems. What is the government's strategy to address these challenges and deliver on the hope that we just heard the young people in the school speaking about?
Okay. Well, thank you for your question, Daniels. Before I address your question, let me start by expressing my sincere gratitude to the British government for co-hosting this high-level pledging event. My special appreciation also goes to Minister Michel and his team for his partnership. I also thank UNOCHA, my good sister Joyce, for joining us. I know Under Secretary General Martin would have liked to join us, as we have done in the past on a number of occasions. I thank him for his able leadership and dedicated service. I deeply thank the UN team led by Assistant Secretary General Dr. Ramiz and also OCHA Representative Paul. I also thank all for joining us for this important pledging conference. It is true that Ethiopia is prone and vulnerable to the impacts of climate change-borne disasters. Daniels, let me tell you that there is nothing agonizing than asking for assistance. It takes out your energy, it saps your energy, but it's something that we have to do it in order to save lives. When we're struck by flood, droughts, and conflicts, in the old days we used to say that we might have disappointed the gods. Little that we know back then that indeed it is induced by climate change. The disasters that has impacted Ethiopia has indeed affected many lives and the livelihood of our people. But having said that, Ethiopia has also a long, very robust national policy and strategy on disaster risk management. This policy is aligned with global disaster risk management instruments, including the Sendai framework, which have taken a lot of lesson from that particular framework. In 1984-85, exactly, I believe 40 years ago, when famine was hit Ethiopia, it was a huge tragedy that indeed changed our perspective on hunger and famine. We were compelled to take food from the hungry to the starving. We put in place, learning a significant lesson from what we encountered, we put in a place where we called it a very active early warning system. And then we said and asked ourselves, does hunger or famine give time? How long does it take for the slow transition of a life into that of death? That indeed has given us a lot of awakening, a lot of lesson. And I'm just trying to tell you from my lived experience as a young man who went to the camps trying to assist those who have been affected by famine. So ever since then, we introduced, as I mentioned earlier, a working framework, first that focused primarily on the saving of lives and protection of livelihood and ensuring all disaster affected population and provide with recovery and rehabilitation assistance. That was indeed one of the first pillars that we realized in order to overcome the onslaught of disasters that has exhibited my country year and after year. The second thing that we realized is that integrating disaster risk reduction into development plans and programs across all sectors, not only for a specific institution, and the commitment to implement those integrated development plans program. And the third aspect is building resilience of vulnerable people and reducing dependency on relief. So we have 3 pillars. The first one is a policy framework. Second, an institutional framework. And then, of course, a strong partnership with the international community. So these are indeed some of the major tasks that we have taken over the years. And through this intervention, we were able to overcome an onslaught of hunger and famine through a robust intervention. This said, I would like to underscore the policy and institutional readiness we have has been indeed pressed by increasing level of disaster risk and their impact. Furthermore, for a country like Ethiopia, 120 million people, and then, of course, one of the fastest growing population, and underdevelopment or stagnation economic development by itself suffice to generate socio-economic and political and humanitarian disaster. Therefore, our path for poverty reduction and for accelerated economic development and transformation is by itself a disaster risk reduction policy. So these are some of the policy intervention that we have introduced over the last 40 years or so. But and yet, we have been being challenged by different kinds of risks. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And you've already preempted my second question because you've spoken about the integrated development plan and your focus on building resilience of the most vulnerable. So maybe all that is left to ask you is how you're doing this, working with development partners, and what the experience has been.
Well, we have a very strong partnership with the development community, and probably I could be, if I'm wrong, I stand to be corrected, I could be the only minister who indeed attend a pledging conference for a country that very much seek assistance. They could be, but have been informed that Ethiopia always make available itself in conferences or pledge events such as this. That, in a way, shows how committed we are. So there is a robust engagement with our partners, and of course there are continuous engagements with donor community, which we have been grateful since when? Since we exhibited so many challenges over the years. So the early warning system, capacity building, and also the life-saving support, that comes through active engagement. So our engagement with the development partners basically targets in the acquisition of additional capability to supplement our national efforts.
70 million under genocide by Abiy Ahmed. There is no drought. Abiy Ahmed genocide.
Well, that's indeed one of our challenges that we always face. These are some of the enablers of conflict and crisis in Ethiopia. So let me proceed to the...
Shame on you, Mr. Andrew, you bring our money, rich money, to hurt the dictator, Abiy Ahmed. He killed us. Why? Why? I will speak with Amharic.
I'm not here to be insulted, man.
I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic.
Yes, let me do that.
And now I will turn to my distinguished speaker to my right, on Minister Mitchell. You recently visited Ethiopia, and you said we have an opportunity right now to stop the looming humanitarian catastrophe in its tracks. Can you tell us a bit more on your view of the situation and how you see the key challenges?
Well, let me start. Let me start, ladies and gentlemen, honoured friends, by saying that is the first time the British government has been called shameful when it's trying to stop a looming humanitarian catastrophe in its tracks. I want to start my remarks by thanking all of you for coming today, alongside my friends from the government of Ethiopia and the United Nations, and to convey my deep concern at the deteriorating humanitarian situation in Ethiopia. This year, ladies and gentlemen, more than 21 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance, and food security conditions in large parts of the country, particularly the northern regions, are dire. When I visited Ethiopia in early February, I saw firsthand the impact of the conflict and drought in Tigray. I met families who had been displaced because of the conflict and who had lost everything. All of their possessions are gone. I met others who were struggling to cope, on the verge of collapse because of the poor harvest linked to the recent drought, which was driven by El Nino. I saw children and mothers who were suffering from severe malnutrition as a result of this awful situation, the implications of which will have long-lasting consequences. I saw the hard work and bravery of UN staff and representatives from charities and NGOs and government health workers who are working together to save lives with international funding. And what is abundantly clear to me is that we must act now to prevent a catastrophe from happening. In order to save lives, we need to work together, most importantly with the government of Ethiopia, to move the dial on this unfolding humanitarian crisis. But international funding is inevitably constrained, and the crisis in Ethiopia risks being overshadowed by other humanitarian crises globally. The humanitarian system is very stretched, as everyone in this room appreciates, and when the need is so great, partners have to make tough decisions to prioritise very limited resources. And this is also the case on the ground, where we must ensure that our assistance reaches the most vulnerable people. We need to accelerate progress in a number of areas, including on the transparency of funding, lifting bureaucratic impediments, and improving the availability of data and analysis so we can make evidence-based decisions and prioritise our support as best we can. Despite the budget reductions many international donors are facing, we must dig as deep as possible to ensure that the worst outcomes are avoided. Unchecked, such humanitarian crises have the potential to decimate communities across Ethiopia. Today we can stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Ethiopia, signalling our support at their time of desperate need. And that is why Britain is committed to supporting the people of Ethiopia now. Last year we doubled our humanitarian funding to Ethiopia, and I'm pleased to announce that today Britain is pledging £100 million, 30 million of which will go towards preventing breakages in the nutrition pipeline and treating the most acutely malnourished. And this will reach hundreds of thousands of people in need. And this is what we believe. And Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we believe our pledge will achieve, the results it will achieve. We think that 243,000 children and pregnant and breastfeeding mothers will be treated for malnutrition, 232,000 people given access to primary health care, 242,000 individuals provided with humanitarian cash, 30,000 people reached with critical wash supplies, 45,000 survivors of gender-based violence reached with specialised and non-specialised psychosocial support, 72,000 children provided with access to emergency education, incredibly important, and 350,000 chronically poor people will receive support through Ethiopia's productive social safety net. Ladies and gentlemen, if you...
Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is dictator. Stop supporting him.
It is, ladies and gentlemen, extraordinary that an intervention that all of us are supporting that is humanitarian should be disrupted in this unacceptable way. If we all pull together, Your Excellencies, in spite of the distractions, and we dig deep into our resolve and our resources, then we can head this off. It is, if you like a football, if I may use a sporting analogy, that has been kicked and is heading towards a plate glass window. If we act now, we can deflect the football so that it doesn't smash the plate glass window. But if we do not act in the way that we are setting out this afternoon, then that plate glass window will be smashed. I look forward to hearing from you how you will help, and thank you wholeheartedly for your support.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your remarks, and certainly we will not be distracted because the needs are pressing. And if I may press you with one more follow-up question to that, what do you see is the most critical priority if we are going to prevent the football shattering the glass right now?
Well, simply put, we must redouble our efforts to ensure food aid reaches the neediest. And we must, as a matter of urgency, respond to acute malnutrition, examples of which I clearly saw in Tigray. A recent assessment from the Famine Early Warning System shows some improvement in areas where food aid operations have been resumed, and it makes clear the need to double down on efforts in hotspot areas to avoid catastrophe outcomes as we now start to enter the lean season. For these reasons, we are allocating £30 million of our pledge today to target critical gaps in nutrition supplies and treating the most urgent forms of malnutrition. Our funding will also target health, water and sanitation as part of efforts to prevent and reduce malnutrition, with complementary funding, RUTF, to promote food security. Key to maximising the efficiency and effectiveness of British funding is a permissive operating environment with the relevant data and analysis freely available. And that is why we are working with the government of Ethiopia and wider humanitarian community to make some concrete improvements in this respect. And this includes greater transparency on aid allocations, more independent and better quality data, and the removal of bureaucratic impediments to enable humanitarian actors to operate more effectively. These steps will help to provide greater value for money on the one hand and aid effectiveness on the other. So, if I may end my remarks, I implore all humanitarian donors to dig deep, and I urge all parties to collaborate together to help enhance the effectiveness of aid operations. Both are required to tackle the emergency situation which is undoubtedly unfolding in Ethiopia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your remarks, for your commitment and resoluteness, for the solidarity, and for digging deep. Thank you. And now I welcome ASG Musuya. And your question is that the humanitarian needs and response plan for Ethiopia requires $3.2 billion to assist more than 15 million people across the country. It outlines a coordinated, timely response from international humanitarian partners in support of the government's own efforts, and we've heard His Excellency the Foreign Minister speak extensively of the government's efforts. So now from OCHA's perspective, can you speak to us about the coordinated approach, how it will deliver tangible impact for the people affected on the ground, as we saw in the video that played earlier?
Thank you very much, Ugochi. And let me first begin by thanking deeply the governments of Ethiopia and the United Kingdom for hosting this timely event with us, and also to all of you for being here despite your busy schedule. I also want to recognize the humanitarians on the ground that put in day in and out and energy to serve the vulnerable populations in Ethiopia. Your presence here sends a very clear signal that the international community is committed to supporting the people of Ethiopia despite the many, many crises going on in the world. Martin Griffith sent his warm regards. He could not be here. What I'm going to say is our collective views from the leadership of OCHA. To answer your specific question, let me highlight a few key points in response to your question. First, the key to an effective and efficient, and I emphasize efficient, response is our close and long-standing collaboration with the Ethiopian government, but also, as you have seen in the video clip earlier, complex humanitarian challenges remain, and this require more collective partnerships and support to address the needs of vulnerable communities and build their resilience. We commend the government of Ethiopia and Ethiopian host communities for welcoming 1 million refugees fleeing violence and hardship in neighboring countries. The second way we are coordinating the delivery of tangible impact for affected people on the ground is the fact that we should remember conflict and climate shocks in Ethiopia have already pushed millions of people into humanitarian need. 4.5 million people have left their homes. Ethiopia now faces food security and nutrition crisis that could dramatically worsen as we enter the lean season, which is starting earlier than in a regular year, notably, as we have heard from the minister, due to the impact of El Nino on the last harvest. The government has developed a national policy and strategy on disaster risk management that addresses the country's vulnerability to climate and conflict-driven shocks. We are committed to continue supporting these efforts through the anticipatory action and ensuring that the humanitarian response is delivered with and through the national response system where possible. This includes primary health care structures, which also need additional and urgent development investment. We are also very much in sync with the government on the approach that we must put power in the hands of people and communities. They have a real understanding of what is happening in the communities and what needs to be done. The response must be guided locally. Lastly, we must continue to work together to reach more than 500,000 people who need humanitarian aid in hard-to-reach parts of the country. As we continue to focus on humanitarian assistance, let us also pay special attention to the safety and security of humanitarian workers on the ground, who sometimes sacrifice their lives to serve others. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your insights on the coordinated approach and, of course, for reminding us of the work our valiant humanitarian workers do on the ground every single day. Could you also tell us how you see that the response in Ethiopia is different from other crises?
Thank you. The crises in Ethiopia overlap and intersect, often making each other worse, is very unique. The sheer number of people affected, let us remember Ethiopia is the second largest, most populous country in Africa. So the scale of the challenge is quite daunting. Ethiopia has been among the countries hit first and worst by global climate emergency. We have seen 5 consecutive failed rainy seasons, as well as record-breaking floods. There has been little or no time to recover from drought before floods hit, and these have been back-to-back shocks. So that is one point that is different. The suffering has been heaped and at scale. But conflict has also taken its toll. People's vulnerability has increased, millions have been displaced, as we have heard, and humanitarians are struggling to reach them. The whole of society suffers, from infrastructure, hospitals, school, clinics, roads, and other critical infrastructures have been destroyed or damaged. The impact of civilian population is heartbreaking, as we have heard from Minister Mitchell, and it's totally unacceptable. There is also disease outbreaks, making matters worse, from malaria and measles spreading, as well as cholera outbreak, which is one of the longest ever recorded in Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is indeed being battered by a perfect storm of accumulating shocks, triggering a spike in humanitarian needs. This is why the meeting today is so crucial, to show solidarity, to express support to the multifaceted, complex challenges driving the humanitarian crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ASG. And now I welcome to Geneva again, Ms. Gebreus, and we're keen to hear from the perspective of NGOs. And could you please tell us how national as well as international NGOs are responding to the needs, especially in hard-to-reach areas where obviously needs are the highest, and what are your teams seeing on the ground?
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and good afternoon, everyone. When the urgent humanitarian crisis in Ethiopia, my fellow panelists described, is not met by adequate resources, many in the room may not see the true consequences of an underfunded response. It is our frontline humanitarian staff, many of whom are part of the communities they serve, that witness the stark realities of unmet needs in an emergency setting. Of over the 21,000 staff in organizations within the Ethiopian humanitarian Hingo that I represent this afternoon, more than 98% are Ethiopian. A day in the life of our field-level staff is often overcome with the frustrations of only having a third of the resources needed to provide to affected populations, risky travel to hard-to-reach areas, some in which they have heard colleagues face kidnappings, carjackings, injuries, even loss of life. You understand the human impact of what 63% of the under-resourcing a humanitarian response looks like when you are the one that must sit down with communities where you have created high expectations to explain that despite the fact that they are grappling to meet their most fundamental needs, there is nothing for them. It is seeing fellow colleagues losing their jobs as projects end, but critical protection, livelihood, WASH, or agricultural programming they were doing still urgently needed by communities in crises. Indeed, our staff experience firsthand what communities face when aid is dwindling and the drivers of crises continue to impact their lives. This work takes an unbelievable toll. Staff tending to our food distributions, who have already been working rapidly to deliver for weeks on end, have experienced fainting or needed medical attention at sites where crowds are large and community frustrations high. Women aid workers listen to harrowing stories and sharing the stories of women and girls who have experienced unfathomable traumas during conflict and droughts. Our staff are resilient to the burden that is put on their shoulders to respond in crises when they themselves are impacted both as members of the community they serve and as humanitarians. As a country director, myself an Ethiopian-born woman who has also served in junior-level roles in humanitarian sector, I'm keenly aware of the challenges our first-line responders face on a daily basis. Likewise, I also have purview into the wider challenges the humanitarian system faces, in which we, at the humanitarian community, must do better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Follow-up question. We just heard ASG Nsuya recognizing the work that our humanitarian colleagues are doing on the front lines every day. Before that, we heard Honorable Minister speaking about imploring fellow donors to dig deep. So from your perspective, what do you think the generosity of donors can have impact in the communities that are most in need?
Thank you. There are parts of the response that are dismally underfunded and leaving critical gaps for crisis-affected communities. We desperately need more WASH, livelihood, health, education, and agricultural programs. The protection response needs to be fully funded to enable humanitarian partners to mitigate protection risks and address intersecting impacts of conflict, hunger, and climate crises. Now is the window of opportunity to invest in early recovery interventions. Communities do not want to rely on humanitarian assistance to meet their needs. Donors often say they want more impact and more results, but their funding remains short-term in focus. We need to start rehabilitating water points instead of costly water tracking that does not meet the wash needs of communities. We need to strengthen long-term food security responses, including for agriculture, livelihood and protection, to increase food security for self-sufficiency and reduce acute food insecurity. We need flexible, predictable and multi-year funding to enable humanitarian partners to address life-saving needs and support adaptation and resilience. Donors and partners should continue to identify opportunities and gaps to deliver better emergency programs with long-lasting impacts, including opportunities to improve coordination between humanitarian and development actors at the country level. With the limited resources available in humanitarian response, a greater proportion of funds must go to local and international NGOs directly implementing programs, including women-led organizations. These are the responders with last-mile expertise that will ensure the limited funding available goes to the people that need it the most. While we must ensure accountability and transparent systems, accountability to affected populations must be our greatest priority. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and for bringing the perspective, the very important perspective of NGO actors into this conversation. And now I turn to my colleague, Mr. Scow, and thank you again for joining us. So we've heard, well, very eloquently from the previous speakers about the dire food security situation and the fact that the forecast will peak at 10.8 million people being critically food insecure between July and September. So what are the most critical actions to take in the most coming months to respond and prevent a deterioration?
Thank you, Gochi. Is my mic?
It's on.
It's on. Okay. Thank you, Gochi, and really thanks to the organizers for this opportunity to not only draw attention to the dire challenges out there, but also to point to the impressive efforts that are being made to address these challenges, and why we need your support, including financial support, to step up these efforts. Because, like you've heard from previous speakers, the situation is dire and really serious. It is the perfect storm that Joy spoke about, with climate change-induced natural disasters. Either it's raining too much or too little. We also have conflict, and what we've seen in recent months, inflation that is driving up prices of food. And this is now pushing hundreds of thousands of people into acute food insecurity. What we're also seeing through our service is that people are now turning to the drastic coping mechanisms that you do when you're facing that situation. And that includes selling off their productive assets, which will have implications also down the road, because it means that you don't no longer have your livelihood. And so what we're now seeing is going to have an impact also further down the road. And so we're now facing the peak of the hunger or the lean season, and so that ball that Minister Mitchell spoke about has really already been kicked. It's already in the air, and we need to act decisively and urgently to halt the situation, to urgently scale up our assistance, working with the government to help prevent a disaster and stabilize the situation. We have the mechanisms and the programs to do it. Together with the government, we have launched a completely new program in Ethiopia. It's a state-of-the-art food assistance program where we have done vulnerability-based targeting to make sure that we reach those most in need. We have a digitalized registration and identity management system to make sure that we avoid duplication, can detect fraud, and streamline processes. And we also have a rigorous monitoring to make sure that the assistance really reaches those most in need. We have already, this first quarter, reached some 3 million people in an efficient and effective way, and so we stand ready to do more, but we really need the resources to be able to continue this program and ideally also scale up to those most in need.
Thank you, Carl. As a follow-up, and you'd already started speaking about this, and it's wonderful to hear about the way the program was revamped and it being state-of-the-art. So what do you see as key to success that's really going to contribute to addressing such high levels of food insecurity?
I think, maybe point to 5 factors, and much of it is just summarizing what you've heard so far. The first one is really the assurance mechanism. We need to ensure that our assistance, of course, reaches those intended to. This is crucial and fundamental to any efficient and effective program. Second is really a community-centered approach. We need to empower the local population and the local authorities, involve them directly in the tailoring and delivery of our program. This is to make the programs relevant, but also to strengthen the ownership and frankly build the capacity needed to prevent these crises from recurring. The third is coordination and collaboration. First and foremost, of course, with the government, the national authorities, at regional and local level as well, and with local communities, but also with the UN family, NGOs, and international partners. We need to avoid duplication, identify gaps where they are, and tap those, and really make sure that our strategies are aligned and coherent. My fourth point is on early warning, and you've heard that before, so that we can take anticipatory action, especially when we face increasing natural disasters. This is really the way to go, a more proactive approach to anticipate the challenges and mitigate the impact before they even occur. And my final one is really what you have heard both from government and the local NGOs, is to focus on building resilience in everything that we do. Self-sufficiency is the way to go. We need to make sure that we integrate that in every emergency effort so that we can break this vicious cycle of food insecurity and really support the efforts by the government to achieve the food sovereignty that it desires.
Thank you very much, Carl, for your reflections on food security. Distinguished guests, please join me in appreciating our co-hosts and the speakers on this panel, because thanks to their great remarks and interventions, we're very clear on the urgency, we're very clear on the need, we have a good understanding of the situation on the ground, and we know what will be needed for success. So thank you. And now we move to the next segment, which includes video statements and pre-registered statements from the floor from pre-registered speakers. I remind you again to please look at the clock. We have a list of 40 speakers with a 2-minute time limit for statements. Thank you, Your Excellencies, once again. And now I will start with the first speaker on my list. I give the floor to the representative of Luxembourg.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Luxembourg would like to thank the United Nations and the governments of Ethiopia and the UK for organizing this event. There is not the time to forget about the Ethiopian people. They need our attention and support more than ever. Climate shocks, drought, worsening food insecurity, internal displacement and cholera outbreaks are among the many challenges Ethiopia is facing today. The situation is even further exacerbated by the ongoing conflicts in Oromia and Amhara region, which have seen reports of widespread sexual and gender-based violence. Ethiopia is also vulnerable to insecurities in surrounding countries. Thus, the refugee population of already 900,000 is likely to increase even further with the expansion of fighting in Sudan. This adds pressure to the already fragile country. In light of this concerning situation, we call upon the Ethiopian authorities to ensure unimpeded humanitarian access, as well as the lifting of the administrative impediments such as visa restrictions and taxation. We stand ready to collectively scale up our efforts to help Ethiopia avoid the worst impact on its population. To help meet humanitarian needs in Ethiopia, my country, Luxembourg, supports the crucial work of the International Committee of the Red Cross, the United Nations Refugee Agency, and the World Food Programme, as well as the Humanitarian Fund for Ethiopia, managed by the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. I'm honored to announce today that my country, Luxembourg, is planning to provide at least 2.5 million euros in humanitarian assistance for Ethiopia in 2024. Given the multitude of complex and protracted humanitarian crises around the world, let me stress how important it is to provide flexible and predictable funding to our humanitarian partners to enable them to protect and help people in need, wherever they may be. In this context, Luxembourg will continue to support emergency funds such as the UN Central Emergency Response Fund and the IFRC's Disaster Response Emergency Fund, and it's committed to continuing to provide flexible contributions to its key partners.
I thank Luxembourg for their message, and I give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Esteemed colleagues, with the dire humanitarian crisis in Ethiopia, USAID is working tirelessly to scale up our humanitarian food assistance to reach those most in need. In December, after a 6-month pause prompted by the discovery of widespread aid diversion, USAID resumed food assistance in Ethiopia. We worked closely with the Ethiopian government and our partners, including the UN, to reform the food aid system and protect against corruption. Since December, we've reached more than 4 million people with food assistance across the country, prioritizing drought and conflict-affected regions with the most acute needs. Today, I'm pleased to announce that the United States will provide an additional $154 million in new humanitarian assistance for Ethiopia. This funding will support critical food security, health, protection, shelter, water, and sanitation needs. It brings the total level of U.S. government humanitarian assistance to Ethiopia so far this fiscal year to $243 million. The United States remains the largest humanitarian donor to Ethiopia, contributing nearly $900 million in humanitarian assistance just last year, and accounting for 2/3 of all contributions towards the 2023 UN Humanitarian Response Plan. But our resources are increasingly stretched. We call on other donors, including the government of Ethiopia, to increase their contributions. The government of Ethiopia must support its own people with resources and commodities, including wheat, prioritize peace so that conflict does not increase needs even further, and help get humanitarian assistance to vulnerable populations quickly and effectively. And the government of Ethiopia should do more to protect aid workers, particularly in Amhara, where 9 aid workers have been killed by violence since April of 2023. The recent reforms within Ethiopia's humanitarian aid architecture were essential. We now have more confidence that the most vulnerable people are being identified and reached with assistance. We must capitalize on this progress by continuing to build better processes that support the delivery of urgent assistance to those most in need. Thank you.
I thank the United States for their statement. We will now hear a statement from the European Union.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Ethiopia is facing multiple and often overlapping humanitarian emergencies. Conflicts, climate extremes, and diseases are hitting the most vulnerable. With over 21 million people in need of aid, and food insecurity and malnutrition reaching alarming levels. With the spotlight of public attention focused elsewhere, we must ensure this emergency is not forgotten and act now to scale up our humanitarian response. The EU recognizes the central role of the government of Ethiopia in their effort to respond to these challenges with support of the international community. However, more action is needed from all parties to help the people of Ethiopia. We must insist on greater respect of international humanitarian law, and we must improve coordination between humanitarian, development and government stakeholders, building long-term solutions and strengthening crisis resilience. In this time of crisis, the international community must not look away. The European Union remains committed to helping people in need across the country. We have already given over 200 million euros for this cause in 2024. This consists of 42 million euros in humanitarian assistance and 162 million euros of EU development funding to build resilience. But funding alone is not enough to tackle this situation. We need to make our response more efficient and effective by improving the operating environment of our humanitarian partners to ensure they can carry out their mission safely, and by improving aid delivery systems to ensure that aid reaches those who need it most. This means resuming the integrated food security phase classification, allowing partners to better prioritize and donors to make more informed decisions. Finally, let me assure you that the European Union will remain a committed and active humanitarian partner in Ethiopia, supporting people in need wherever they are. Thank you.
I thank the European Union for their statement and give the floor to the representative of the People's Republic of China.
Thank you very much, Nguzi. I'm very much honored to be part of this very timely and important event. As a longtime friend, China has been very much sympathetic with the grave humanitarian situation in Ethiopia, and I'm very much encouraged by the positive signals from the panel and from the previous speakers. China has been providing humanitarian aid and assistance in various formats, including vaccines for COVID-19 and the cholera outbreak, medical experts and materials, as well as food assistance. A brief update for this year. Firstly, the fourth shipment of rice and wheat will be delivered, adding up to 10,000 tons in total. Secondly, 8 experts will be arriving to help local farmers in Ethiopia. Thirdly, China reached an agreement in February with UNIDO and Ethiopia to work together to provide assistance in terms of industrialization, agricultural modernization, and professional training. Madam Moderator, China will continue to make more contributions in areas such as agriculture, poverty alleviation, medical treatment, and public health, and green development. In the meantime, we are committed to enhance bilateral, tripartite, and multilateral cooperations to strengthen Ethiopia's capacity building for sustainable development. Count on our solidarity and support. Thank you very much.
I thank the People's Republic of China for their statement. And next we have a video statement from Canada.
Hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. I want to begin by thanking the government of Ethiopia for bringing us all together to attend this important conference so that we can address the urgent humanitarian crisis that's affecting millions of the people of Ethiopia. Canada is deeply concerned about the dire humanitarian condition affecting so many Ethiopian people, and we are ready to help. For 40 years, Canada has always stepped up when Ethiopia has asked for support. And today, we're pledging $30.7 million from Canada to address the dire humanitarian needs of the people of Ethiopia that are being affected by this crisis. This funding will go to provide much needed life-saving supplies, including food, medicine, and protection services. We're always here to help, and we thank you once again for bringing us all together. Merci beaucoup.
I thank Canada for their statement, and now I give the floor to the representative of France.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Madam Secretary General on Humanitarian Affairs, Assistant Director General of the IOM, Executive Director of the World Food Programme, representatives of NGOs, dear colleagues, thank you for this opportunity to express to Ethiopia the appreciation of France. We appreciate the initiative of the government, that of the United Kingdom, of the humanitarian organisations. As you have recalled, Ethiopia is facing multiple crises in terms of food security and others. We have seen significant displacement of population and many people deprived of essential services. We had an international humanitarian conference for the Sudanese people very recently, and now we're turning our attention to Ethiopia in light of the challenges facing civilians. We mustn't have double standards. So Ethiopia has become one of the countries that is most acutely affected by the Sudanese crisis. There have been thousands of refugees that have added to the crises facing Ethiopia. We have seen people forcibly displaced from South Sudan, Somalia or Eritrea. And whilst we see solidarity, the international community needs to mobilise. France has responded to the humanitarian organisations in Ethiopia with around 24 million euros in 2023. We will continue with this in 2024, and we renew our respect and support for all those on the ground that are trying to provide support to the population. In terms of financial support, it's important to recall that the respect of international humanitarian law and protection of humanitarian workers needs to be upheld. We would encourage the Ethiopian government to continue to strive to break down any administrative barriers that could hamper the channeling of emergency assistance, particularly for visas for humanitarian workers. This anniversary of the Geneva Convention, France would be particularly mobilised to try to defend the humanitarian action in Ethiopia in all cases of crisis. I thank you.
I thank France for their statement. Next, we will hear a statement from Denmark.
Excellencies, colleagues, Denmark remains a committed partner to Ethiopia. Together with the government of Ethiopia, civil society, the EU and other international partners, we're working to address the root causes of the rising humanitarian needs. The humanitarian situation in Ethiopia remains dire. It continues to require international attention and support. I extend my appreciation to the hosts for taking the initiative to organize this very important conference. Today, we are sending a clear signal of solidarity with the peoples of Ethiopia, whose lives continue to be impacted by conflict, instability, and climate shocks. I'm pleased to announce that Denmark is committed to provide $14.1 million in humanitarian assistance to Ethiopia. Our support will focus on protection of displaced people and children, as well as delivery of life-saving aid to conflict and drought-affected areas. The crises in Ethiopia are protracted and complex. I recently visited the country, and it is clear to me that the situation calls for more than humanitarian response. It calls for initiatives that bridge development and climate efforts and promote durable solutions. This includes promoting resilience, rural and urban social safety nets, climate adaptation, democracy, human rights, and national dialogue. But working together, I am confident that we can assist Ethiopia in addressing the continuous challenges through holistic and sustainable support. Thank you.
I thank Denmark for their statement, and we will now hear a statement from Ireland.
Organisers for arranging today's important event. The Irish government has been a long-standing partner with the people of Ethiopia. This year we mark 30 years of diplomatic relations. Irish NGOs have made a strong contribution to development and humanitarian needs in Ethiopia. On my recent visit to Ethiopia, I announced €8.4 million for the national flagship programmes on social protection, universal healthcare and economic reform. I also witnessed the increasing food, nutrition and protection needs of millions of people affected by conflict and climate change. In 2023, Ireland was proud to provide €41 million in support of sustainable development, peace and humanitarian action in Ethiopia, and we will at least maintain this level of support in 2024. This will include today's pledge of €9.8 million in direct humanitarian assistance to Ethiopia. We encourage the government of Ethiopia and the United Nations to deliver the strong accountability mechanisms needed to prevent the diversion of food aid and to ensure that assistance goes to the most vulnerable. Ireland, through our embassy in Addis Ababa, is determined to stand with the people of Ethiopia this year and in the years to come. Thank you.
I thank Ireland for their statement and now give the floor to the representative of Chechnya.
Madam Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for organizing this donor conference. The Czech Republic is well aware of the complex humanitarian situation in Ethiopia and the need for humanitarian assistance from donor countries and international organizations. Ethiopia is one of the priority countries for foreign development cooperation for the Czech Republic. We provide long-term significant humanitarian and stabilization assistance to Ethiopia, linked also to the development assistance in the country, in particular focused on sustainable use of water and other natural resources and climate-smart agriculture and rural development. In view of the needs of Ethiopia, including the regional refugee crisis, the donor community should also promote prevention, mediation and long-term stabilization. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, Czechia has been a long-term firm supporter of humanitarian and development peace nexus and its preventive dimension, which is of utmost importance in fragile settings. We appreciate close cooperation with the regional authority of the Intergovernmental Authority of Development, the UN agencies and international non-governmental organizations in this area. And in view of the comprehensive needs of Ethiopia, the Czech Republic pledges to provide humanitarian stabilization and resilience building assistance worth at least €8.6 million in this year and next. Thank you.
I thank Czechia for their statement and now give the floor to the representative of the Netherlands.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, DED, Madam ASG, Ministers, DED, Madam KBS, and ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies. As most others in this room, the Kingdom of the Netherlands is greatly concerned about the worsening humanitarian situation in Ethiopia, particularly in areas of food security, nutrition, and disease outbreaks. And this year we will therefore contribute €23.5 million to the response through the Ethiopia Humanitarian Fund, Netherlands Red Cross, and the Dutch Relief Assistance. And this, Madam Chair, is in addition to our unearmarked contributions to the Central Emergency Response Fund, UN agencies, and the Red Cross movement. And let me also emphasize the importance of long-term support through development programs. The Netherlands ODA portfolio in Ethiopia is close to €200 million in 2024 alone.
which includes investments in durable solutions for refugees and host communities. And with our partners, we are looking for ways to be flexible in order to also respond to the rising immediate needs. In that manner, the Netherlands is putting the humanitarian development nexus into practice, for example, through increased funding to the National Safety Net program. And Madam Chair, while affirming our financial commitments, we strongly urge the Ethiopian government as primary duty bearer to acknowledge the significance of the food security problem and respond accordingly. This also includes allowing for independent assessment, such as by the IPC. And we kindly call on the Ethiopian government to ensure the safety of civilians and humanitarian workers, to facilitate that assistance ends up with those who are most vulnerable and in need, and finally to remove bureaucratic impediments to ensure effective access for humanitarian support. Ladies and gentlemen, as was stated by OCHA and the speakers before me, the needs are immense, and that makes today's event very important. So thank you very much to the government of Ethiopia and the UK, as well as OCHA, for bringing us together. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the Netherlands for their statement, and now give the floor to the representative of the Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen, I would like to begin by thanking the government of Ethiopia and the United Kingdom, as well as the OCHA, for co-hosting this important conference. Today, Ethiopia is grappling with the confluence of multiple crises. The impact of erratic weather patterns, such as severe drought and massive flood, have triggered an alarming increase in food insecurity and malnutrition. In addition to the internal displacement, the instability in the region, particularly due to the conflict in Sudan, is leading to the influx of refugees, which is exacerbating humanitarian needs and stretching limited resources. Given the scale and the complexity of the crisis, the situation cannot be addressed by the government of Ethiopia alone. The plight of the people in Ethiopia demands immediate attention and concerted effort of the international community. Against this backdrop, the Republic of Korea will continue its humanitarian assistance to Ethiopia this year. We will provide about $18 million. This includes more than 13,000 metric tons of rice as in-kind contribution, which are worth about $11 million. I sincerely hope that our support would contribute to addressing the challenges, especially the food and nutritional insecurity. The Republic of Korea will remain in solidarity with the people of Ethiopia, offering not just our humanitarian assistance, but our unwavering commitment to peace and stability. Thank you.
And I now give the floor to Malta.
Thank you. Excellencies, on behalf of the government of Malta, I would like to thank the UN, Ethiopia, and the UK for convening this timely high-level pledging event. Over the past decades, the world has witnessed an alarming increase in protracted humanitarian crises, which do not benefit equally from the media spotlight, often overshadowed by more recent emergencies. This does not mean, however, that they do not require an urgent response from the international community. The humanitarian situation in Ethiopia is one such situation, where despite the best efforts of the Ethiopian authorities to assist the most vulnerable individuals and groups, more than 21 million individuals still require urgent assistance. This prolonged humanitarian situation is due in large part to the impact of climate-related disasters, conflict and other challenges, and we must recognize that these are more than merely short-term challenges. In countries affected by climate-related instability, like Ethiopia, the reduced availability of water, decreased agricultural yields, and the mass displacement of individuals are becoming more and more common. The international community must seek to address this situation by working with Ethiopia to develop concrete and sustainable solutions. Malta welcomes the ongoing collaboration between the UN, humanitarian partners and the government of Ethiopia to deliver life-saving assistance, including food aid to millions of those who are most in need. Targeting vulnerable communities, including through the use of data, remains key. We must also support anticipatory action and humanitarian development peace nexus initiatives to build community resilience against future climate shocks and support Ethiopia as host to more than 1 million refugees from neighbouring countries. To conclude, more can be done to support the funding needed to sustain the humanitarian response in Ethiopia over the coming months. I am thus honoured to announce on behalf of the Republic of Malta that a fresh financial contribution will be dispersed before the end of this month in support of the UN's aid operations in Ethiopia. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Malta for his statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Norway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by thanking the UK, Ethiopia and OCHA for convening this important meeting, and by commending the UK, the US and others for leading by example. Sustaining funding for protracted crisis is a challenge in a world marked by growing humanitarian needs, new emerging crises, and limited fiscal space. We need to bring about durable solutions in close collaboration with the governments and our development partners. We also need to coordinate humanitarian assistance in order to reach and support the most vulnerable, including IDPs. Norway is among the 17 countries which have endorsed a joint position paper suggesting ways to do this in Ethiopia. New commitment is needed to improve access, reduce obstacles, improve information systems, and to strengthen partnerships with local actors. All parties have a responsibility to protect civilians and to fully respect and implement IHL and international human rights law. Those who commit violations have to understand that there will be accountability. Ladies and gentlemen, Norway has been a partner of Ethiopia for many decades. We will continue to stand in solidarity with the Ethiopian people, as a development partner and as a humanitarian partner in times of crisis. I am pleased today to announce an additional funding of 61.2 million Norwegian kroner, approximately 5.2 million euros, for UN and NGO programs in Ethiopia. This earmarked contribution comes in addition to substantive core funding from Norway for UN organizations, humanitarian fund mechanisms such as the SURF, and the Red Cross and Crescent movement, which benefits Ethiopia. I thank you.
Their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Italy.
Madam Chair, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Italy would like to thank the United Nations as well as the governments of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the United Kingdom for co-organizing today's high-level pledging event for the humanitarian situation in Ethiopia. Within Italy's increased focus on Africa as a priority area of our foreign policy, Ethiopia occupies a special place. It is not by chance that one of the first visits abroad of Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, almost exactly 1 year ago, was to the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. Our commitment stems from the recognition of Ethiopia's role in the shaping of Africa's future trajectory. As Africa's second country by population and one of the world's fastest growing economies, Ethiopia has also a leading position within the Horn of Africa that makes it crucial to the stability of the African continent. Ethiopia is experiencing a multidimensional crisis, and it's a duty of the international community to address it properly and timely. The projection by the Ethiopian Disaster Risk Management Commission that the ongoing drought has already impacted on the livelihoods of over 6.6 million people has to be taken seriously, as have other estimates that put up to 20 million people in a situation of food insecurity. Italy closely follows the development on the ground in coordination with the EU, the United Nations and the governments of Ethiopia, and is committed to do its part in tackling the deteriorating humanitarian situation. We are deeply convinced that the support of the local authorities plays an essential role in assuring access and support to international humanitarian operations and ultimately in providing relief to the local population. At the same time, we want to reflect on the longer nature of the crisis, its root causes, and work together on a long-term solution. An exclusively humanitarian response is not enough. We need to work more on the link between humanitarian action and development action to ensure that our initiative also have a lasting effect. This is the reason why it's a key to continue to support the consolidation of the peace process and the reconstruction in Ethiopia, encouraging the implementation of the Pretoria Agreement and further progress in de-escalating ethnic tension. Italy's commitment aims to focus on both the most urgent needs and the challenge in the medium and long run. Thus, last year in May, Italy was one of the co-organizers of the International Conference for the Horn of Africa in New York. As a clear expression of our commitment, in 2023, our humanitarian response amounted to €25 million in support of international organizations and Italian civil organizations active on the ground. Further substantial contributions were destined to development programs. In 2024, we intend to renew our commitment to the humanitarian response and our proximity to the most vulnerable people in Ethiopia. We will continue to do our part to tackle the most urgent humanitarian needs and, most importantly, to contribute to Ethiopia's path of economic growth and human development. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank Italy for their statement and now give the floor to the representative of Sweden.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The humanitarian crisis in Ethiopia is really reaching alarming proportions, and I therefore wish to thank the government of Ethiopia, the United Kingdom and OCHA for organizing today's important event. The humanitarian response in Ethiopia is severely underfunded and urgent action is needed. Sweden, as a member of the Humanitarian and Resilience Donor Group in Ethiopia, expresses its support to the messages in the donor's position paper. We must ensure that humanitarian aid reaches those with the most severe needs, regardless of their location or circumstances. This requires full, safe and unimpeded access for humanitarian organizations and a commitment from all parties to respect international humanitarian law. We urge the Ethiopian government to lift bureaucratic impediments and increase the number of and faster approval of visas, work permits and memorandum of understandings for humanitarian NGOs. We welcome efforts by the Ethiopian government to address and prevent cases of aid diversion. Independent data collection and targeting is key to ensure that aid reaches the most vulnerable. I am proud to declare Sweden's commitment as one of the leading contributors of development aid to Ethiopia. For 2024, we have allocated around €21 million only for humanitarian action in Ethiopia. This comes in addition to our extensive core funding to humanitarian partners active in Ethiopia. However, Sweden's support goes beyond the humanitarian sphere. We also provide €148 million in development aid for the period 2022 to 2026. We encourage fellow donors to step up their funding to Ethiopia and encourage joint advocacy for more efficient humanitarian delivery. Finally, we support increased synergies on the ground between humanitarian, development and peace efforts. I thank you.
I thank Sweden for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Estonia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, dear colleagues, allow me to thank the governments of Ethiopia and the United Kingdom, as well as OCHA, for organizing today's event. With funding critically low, a common effort is much needed. We are deeply concerned about the worsening humanitarian situation in Ethiopia, particularly the reports of increasing food insecurity, risk of disease outbreak, and gender-based violence. It is disheartening to see the situation deteriorate after the progress made before the pandemic. We welcome the report on priority humanitarian response and critical funding gaps, and the prioritization exercise to help focus resources where they are most needed. We also welcome WFP's resumption of operations in Ethiopia in November 2023, as well as its renewed approach to aid with more robust safeguards and controls. Estonia is a committed global donor and long-term humanitarian donor in the region. Today, we pledge €40,000 through the Ethiopia Humanitarian Fund to help the ones most in need. I thank you.
I thank Estonia for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Finland.
Thank you, Madam. Excellencies, Finland thanks OCHA, Ethiopia and the UK for this important pledging event. With compounding crises and underfunding of aid, we remain very concerned about the situation of the 21.4 million people in need of humanitarian assistance in Ethiopia. Climate shocks, conflicts and crises in the region, including in Sudan, will continue to have its toll in the country. Humanitarians are doing remarkable work, but they cannot do it alone. It is crucial that climate and development action respond to the long-term needs to build resilience and to support climate adaptation and mitigation. It is also important to restore peace in the country. We encourage Ethiopia to continue to show leadership in addressing the most pressing emergency needs in the country, in close cooperation with the international community and development and local actors. We are particularly concerned about those in most vulnerable situations, including women, children and persons with disabilities. Humanitarian aid must be provided without discrimination and in accordance with IHL and the humanitarian principles. Finland continues to support those in need in Ethiopia. Last year, we supported humanitarian assistance in the region with over 20 million euros. In 2024, Finland has so far decided to contribute 4.7 million euros to the humanitarian response in Ethiopia through OCHA, the Finnish Refugee Council and the Finnish Red Cross, as well as 5 million euros to the UNHCR's regional response. I thank you.
I thank Finland for their statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first let me thank OCHA, the United Kingdom and Ethiopia for organizing today's conference. Times are difficult with multiple crises and the number of people in need of assistance continues to increase. The humanitarian conference on the regional refugee crisis caused by the conflict in Sudan that took place yesterday in Paris and was co-hosted by Germany made this very clear. At the same time, funding is decreasing. Therefore, we urgently need to collaborate to deliver funds more effectively and efficiently in light of rising needs and dwindling funds. This also means investing in strengthening the resilience of people and communities to reduce humanitarian needs in the longer term. Our goal remains unchanged. 100% of our support needs to reach those in need as quickly and effectively as possible. However, this is a two-way road. Conditions need to be in place to ensure humanitarian workers are able to deliver assistance and ensure that it reaches the most vulnerable. Last year, cases of aid diversion have deeply troubled the donor community. We continue to call for a full and thorough investigation into the matter both by WFP and the Ethiopian government. Accountability efforts have to be put in place and supported to prevent diversion, stop impunity and ensure that assistance goes to the most vulnerable and on the basis of needs and vulnerability only. This is key to restoring donor confidence. At the same time, the government of Ethiopia must refrain from interference in the principle-based delivery of humanitarian assistance. This includes the targeting process, needs assessments and facilitating humanitarian access in all parts of the country. The protection of humanitarian and health workers needs to be guaranteed. Impediments to their work, such as visa and work permit restrictions or taxations on vehicle imports, must be removed. The food security crisis in northern Ethiopia is a prime example of conflict and protracted displacement exacerbating the adverse effects of climate change. We therefore urge the UN and the Ethiopian government to work towards identifying durable solutions for IDPs. All IDP returns must be voluntary, safe, informed and dignified. The underlying political factors of the food security crisis cannot be solved by humanitarian actors. We are also concerned about the ongoing conflict and instability in Amhara and Oromia and appeal for a negotiated settlement of these conflicts. Germany will remain a strong humanitarian partner in Ethiopia. The Horn of Africa, and particularly Ethiopia, will remain a focus of German humanitarian assistance. In addition, German development cooperation supports a sustainable and climate-resilient agriculture to contribute to food security. Amidst the budget cut in 2012 24, we are aiming at providing a similar amount of funding for the humanitarian response in Ethiopia this year compared to last year's level. However, we can only live up to the ambition if trust can be restored, access improved, and all actors involved collaborate constructively to achieve tangible reforms to prevent aid diversion and ensure our assistance receives its goal, to reach those in dire need with life-saving assistance efficiently and effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. The only
not again.
What do you do when you family are under a drone attack?
I thank Germany for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Japan is deeply concerned about the humanitarian situation in Ethiopia is currently facing due to climate change, conflict, and other compounding factors. We thank the government of Ethiopia, the UK government, and the UN for their leadership in reminding the international community of the need for coordinated action to address this humanitarian crisis. As for 2024, we have decided our assistance package of approximately $17 million in total. This comprises assistance for food security and nutrition, health, emergency response, and rehabilitation in collaboration with the FAO, WHO, and the ICRC. It also includes emergency humanitarian assistance, which was provided in response to the highly destructive flood that occurred at the end of last year, in collaboration with the UNHCR, IOM, UNICEF, and the ICRC. At the same time, we must not forget Ethiopia's generosity in hosting more than 1 million refugees from neighboring countries, despite its own challenges. At the second Global Refugee Forum last December, Japan pledged to support strengthening peace through the stabilization and the integration of displaced persons in host community in Ethiopia. We will continue to work further with Ethiopia and development actors using HDP Nexus approach to build community resilience and sustainable support. In closing, Japan will continue to support Ethiopia in solidarity with the international community at the response to the humanitarian situation in Ethiopia. I thank you.
I thank Japan for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, Mr. Minister. Belgium, currently holding the presidency of the Council of the European Union, is pleased to announce that EU member states are today pledging collectively €88.28 million for the humanitarian response in Ethiopia in 2024. This comes on top of the €43.1 million made available by the European Commission, as just announced by Commissioner Lenarčič in his statement. This brings the Team Europe total to over €131.38 million. For its part, Belgium remains faithful to its reputation as a predictable and flexible donor. We are committed and remain committed to quality core funding to organizations such as OCHA, UNHCR, WFP, ICRC, precisely to alleviate the plights of underfunded and forgotten crises, including in Ethiopia. I thank you.
I thank Belgium for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of New Zealand.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank the governments of Ethiopia, the United Kingdom and the United Nations for convening this important event. New Zealand remains deeply concerned for the 21 million people in need of humanitarian assistance across Ethiopia. Communities continue to be impacted by conflict as well as other overlapping crises, including economic and climate-related shocks, as well as disease outbreaks. Women, children and persons with disabilities are amongst those most affected. We recognise the pivotal role to be played by the government of Ethiopia in responding to the humanitarian situation as the primary duty bearer, with support from the international community. New Zealand has supported humanitarian responses in Ethiopia since 2017 and will continue our support this year. In 2024, we are contributing approximately 4.25 million New Zealand dollars to the response. Our partners for this support include the International Committee of the Red Cross, the Ethiopia Humanitarian Fund, and New Zealand non-governmental organisations working with in-country partner NGOs. New Zealand continues to call on relevant authorities to ensure humanitarian access so that humanitarian organisations can safely deliver principled protection and assistance. We also call on relevant authorities and partners to ensure that assistance can be delivered efficiently and transparently without impediment or interference, including to support credible and effective beneficiary selection and assistance monitoring processes. It is essential that assistance reaches those most in need. We express our sincere gratitude to the humanitarian workers who continue to provide vital support in Ethiopia. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank New Zealand for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. President, Excellencies, we support the efforts of the Ethiopian government to restore constitutional order and normalize situation in Tigray region. We commend the constructive position of Addis Ababa, which continues to work together with international partners to investigate the deaths of civilians and other crimes committed during the conflict in Tigray. With regard to the situation in Ethiopia, we strongly believe that there is no alternative to preserving the unity and territorial integrity of the federal Ethiopian state as a basis for resolving all disputed issues. We believe that the positive practical experience of the peaceful settlement in Tigray can be used to normalize situation in other regions, in particular in Amhara and Oromo. We welcome the decisions of Addis Ababa to launch a national political dialogue. We believe that the cessation of armed confrontation and progress in the area of political settlement will greatly contribute to normalization of humanitarian situation in Ethiopia. The Russian Federation actively participates in international cooperation in the field of humanitarian assistance under the auspices of the United Nations and consistently advocates strong compliance with the UN guiding principles of emergency humanitarian assistance. Last year, we allocated more than 2.5 million of the US dollars through the World Food Programme for the food assistance to Ethiopia and provided humanitarian assistance to that country through the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, as well as other humanitarian structures. We fully support the efforts of the Ethiopian authorities to assist civilians affected by natural disasters and armed conflicts in the territory of that state. I thank you.
I thank the Russian Federation for their statement, and now I give the floor to the representative of Iran.
Thank you, Chair. At the outset, I would like to emphasize that focusing on humanitarian issues, regardless what is happening around us, is always a priority for us, and it should never be neglected. In this regard, Iran supports humanitarian response efforts, including providing assistance to vulnerable populations and those affected by natural disasters. Today, different forms of humanitarian challenges in Ethiopia, such as drought and the issue of hosting a relatively large number of refugees, has exacerbated humanitarian needs in Ethiopia. Moreover, Ethiopia has suffered from the imposition of unilateral coercive measures by the US, which has weakened the efforts of the government of Ethiopia in reducing humanitarian needs. It is a fact that UCMs thwart international humanitarian efforts and nullify the pledges to the countries struggling with a variety of challenges. In our view, talking on humanitarian assistance and addressing the UCM are interlinked. Iran has made lots of successful experiences in several fields of humanitarian issues. While we share lots of commonalities with Ethiopia, we are fully prepared to take part and assist the reconstruction efforts and to share our expertise in various fields such as health, medical treatment, confronting outbreak disease, education, and particularly in terms of refugees management to the African country. Iran is also open to assisting Ethiopia with medicine and medical equipment, which it has done in the past in several cases. We reiterate the necessity of reinforcing the efforts of the government of Ethiopia in reducing humanitarian needs while promoting long-term resilience and development of communities and national systems. I thank you.
I thank Iran for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Switzerland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Switzerland would like to thank the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and the United Nations for convening this important high-level pledging event. As Ethiopia faces recurrent humanitarian challenges, mainly resulting from climate-related disasters and conflicts, Switzerland reaffirms its commitment for its continued support to the country. In 2024, we plan to invest more than 10 million euros to address both immediate humanitarian needs as well as long-term development challenges. This comes in addition to our core funding to ICRC, WFP, and UNHCR. In view of the important humanitarian challenges faced by the country, we urge to continue ongoing efforts to improve the system of aid delivery in order to prevent the diversions of assistance and ensure that aid reaches those most in need. In our capacity as co-chair of the humanitarian donor group in Ethiopia, Switzerland will diligently follow up on the implementation of important humanitarian initiatives to reinforce humanitarian coordination and access, the centrality of protection, as well as the adherence to international humanitarian law. Furthermore, we call upon the government of Ethiopia and the UN and the donor community to continue their efforts to forge durable solutions for those forcibly displaced. It is our collective duty to ensure that every individual has the opportunity to live with dignity and hope. Thank you very much for your attention.
I thank Switzerland for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Austria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me first thank the United Nations, the government of Ethiopia, and the government of the United Kingdom for convening this important event. The resolution of the humanitarian situation in Ethiopia continues to face serious challenges, including disasters caused by the climate crisis. Ethiopia is suffering from one of the worst droughts in decades, included by El Niño. Furthermore, the country and its population are affected by additional major disasters, such as acute outbreaks of diseases like malaria, cholera, and measles. the effects of one of the worst desert locust plagues in recent decades, and recent floods in the south and east of the country. Over 20 million persons currently depend on humanitarian assistance. 5.5 million people have acute food needs or are already considered chronically malnourished. Several regions of Ethiopia are plagued by armed conflict, with 4.4 million persons being internally displaced. We commend the government of Ethiopia and the Ethiopian people for generously hosting 960,000 refugees from the region despite the challenging humanitarian situation. We encourage the government of Ethiopia to advance the full implementation of the cessation of hostilities agreement, in particular regarding the demobilization and disarmament of combatants and the investigation and prosecution of serious IHL and human rights violations. Also, efforts to peacefully resolve the conflicts in Amhara and Oromia have to be stepped up. We call on the government of Ethiopia to prioritize public funding to the most pressing emergency needs and increase pro-poor policies. Accountability efforts need to be stepped up and bureaucratic impediments lifted so that humanitarian assistance reaches those in need. More needs to be done to protect civilians and humanitarian workers, including the respect for IHL. Austria has a long-standing tradition of engaging in humanitarian assistance. Ethiopia is a priority partner country of the Austrian Development Cooperation since 1993. In keeping with its humanitarian responsibility, I'm glad to announce that this year Austria will provide humanitarian assistance in the amount of at least 4 million euros for the people of Ethiopia. Thank you very much.
I thank Austria for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of the IFRC and the Ethiopian Red Cross Society.
Ladies and gentlemen, the IFRC applauds the convening of this pledging event, and we thank the solidarity expressed in this event by donor governments on the neglected crisis affecting Ethiopia. What we call neglected crisis is echoing the silent impact of a massive human suffering compounded by chronic malnourishment of children, collapsed livelihoods of families and communities, huge protection gaps, deeply eroded coping mechanisms and resilience prospects. We talk about people affected by conflict, climate change, and socioeconomic crisis. We talk of uncovered huge needs and insufficiently support to anonymize humanitarian actors. We are proud to count on the Ethiopian Red Cross Society staff and volunteers, which have never stopped delivering life-saving and life-sustaining services to affected communities. May I hand the floor now to the Secretary General of Ethiopian Red Cross Society, Ato Getachew Ta, to provide his localized perspective and a call for support.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to present the case for Ethiopian Red Cross Society. We met at a time when the people of Ethiopia are indeed at great peril due to multiple crises. Ethiopian Red Cross is a national organization committed to locally led solutions and a member of the IFRC and component of the International Red Crescent movement. For decades, we have been at the forefront of humanitarian response across Ethiopia, upholding our humanitarian principles and accountability standards and leveraging our extensive grassroots network, assets and capabilities across the country. Today, we call on you to support us and our partners in scaling up our immediate and longer-term response to crisis-affected communities. We call on you to endorse and support our humanitarian and resilience program in northern Ethiopia, in which we seek 200 million Swiss francs to reach 2.6 million people over 5 years. The operational strategy is a two-tier nexus approach of integrated humanitarian response and resilience, and actions are informed by community engagement on their priority needs on the ground in Tigray, Amhara, and Afar. Beyond Ethiopia's north, we also call on you to partner on our hunger crisis appeal that derived our emergency and recovery response to the devastating food security crisis in Ethiopia and across the Horn of Africa. The bottom line is this: the plight of people is increasing daily in desperation. Ethiopian Red Cross had access, experience, and capacity to rise to this overwhelming challenge. We can demonstrate impact, and we will report upon it to you and the community we serve. We need your engagement to help us deliver positive results and bring about hope for our people. We need your belief and investment in us as local actors with nationwide reach. Ethiopia needs your help. I thank you.
I thank the representatives of the IFRC and the Ethiopian Red Cross Society for their statements, and I now hand the floor to the representative of the Permanent Mission of the Holy See.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Today's meeting is an expression of our solidarity with Ethiopia, a country facing a profound humanitarian crisis that affects 1 in 6 of its citizens. Ethiopia is grappling with the consequences of conflict, disease outbreaks, and the 5th consecutive failed rainy season, resulting in the most severe drought conditions in decades. These catastrophic events have led to increased malnutrition rates, affecting in particular 1 million children and numerous women. Severe economic difficulties such as inflation and disrupted trade have further exacerbated these challenges. The Ethiopian authorities and various international partners have responded with remarkable resolve and commitment. However, there is still a significant funding shortfall. It is essential that all actors, both internal and external, make a concerted and unified effort to bridge the gap for 2024. Pope Francis has emphasized the severity of the humanitarian crisis and the pressing need for solidarity with the affected populations. Reflecting his deep concern, the Holy See supports the appeals of the Catholic Ethiopian Episcopal Conference for immediate action and humanitarian aid, and highly appreciates the convening of this high-level pledging event. The Catholic Church in Ethiopia, although a minority, plays a pivotal role in providing and distributing aid to populations affected by food insecurity and victims of other emergencies. In 2023, the activities of the local Catholic churches benefited nearly 6 million people in 9 of the country's 12 regions, regardless of their religious affiliation. The projects, which totaled more than $80 million, focused mainly on humanitarian aid and food security. These figures do not include the significant amount of financial support provided by other international Catholic agencies. Today, the Holy See is renewing its commitment. This is not out of obligation, but rather a profound sense of shared humanity, religious duty, and moral obligation. Let us act quickly and provide unwavering support to ensure that we make every effort to bring security, stability, and peace through our collective response to the humanitarian needs of Ethiopia. Thank you very much.
I thank the Holy See for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of WHO.
Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, salam and greetings from Dr. Tedros, who is unfortunately travelling today, but as he has said many times to the world over the last number of years, Dena Adarachu, Dena Walachu, Dena Aweshachu, and I'd just like to recognise the presence of Dr. Owen Laws Kalua, also behind me, who's our country representative in Ethiopia. Widespread hunger and disease are putting millions of lives in peril, particularly in Tigray, Amhara, Afar, Oromia and other regions of Ethiopia torn apart by years of devastating conflict. Much of the health system and basic infrastructure has been degraded or destroyed. The country faces multiple deadly outbreaks. The cholera outbreak is in its 20th month, with over 41,000 cases. in 54 districts across 8 regions. It's the largest cholera outbreak in the history in Ethiopia's history. Malaria cases are already at 1.1 million for this year, after a record year of over 4 million reported cases in 2023. Over 15,000 cases of measles have been reported from over 100 districts in 2024 alone. These outbreaks are occurring in areas where millions of people lack access to essential health services. Drought and flooding and the effects of climate change are making the situation even worse. WHO and our health partners in the health cluster are on the ground providing life-saving health services. Without urgent funding, we cannot simply continue. Instead of maintaining the scale-up to respond to the worsening health and food security emergency in Ethiopia, WHO is forced to scale down due to funding shortfalls. So far this year, we have received only 4% of the $187 million needed to keep operations going. Last year, we received only 1/4 of our appeal. WHO was forced to draw on internal emergency funds, and yet it was still not enough. These funding shortfalls are forcing us to cut emergency staff by half, and we will have to cut more if funding is not received soon. Excellencies, partners investing in WHO and the health cluster partners save lives. It means sending mobile health and nutrition teams into distant and dangerous areas to help infants and children ravaged by acute malnutrition. It means providing vaccination to prevent deadly disease outbreaks and being able to treat those in need. It means helping health facilities in conflict-affected areas to resume their life-saving services, including sustaining our support to nearly 2/3 of Ethiopia's healthcare facilities which have nutrition and stabilisation centres. It means continuing to deliver essential health supplies, and at this time last year, over 10% of all WHO's global procurement goes to Ethiopia. It's at 14% in 2024 already. I thank you. Amasege Nalehu.
Thank you, WHO, for your statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the ICRC.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. As many have already stated, the consequences of past and current conflict have created immense humanitarian needs in different parts of Ethiopia. Access to health care for the wounded and sick, the care for a large and unfortunately growing population maimed by remnants of war, food insecurity, as well as access to water and sanitation are but some of the most pressing issues. In response to the humanitarian needs linked to armed conflict in Tigray, Afar, Amhara, as well as in the Oromia and Somali regions, the ICRC maintains a countrywide approach to assisting affected populations. Together with the colleagues from the Ethiopian Red Cross Society, we provide medical supplies, food, cash assistance, and essential household items. We also rehabilitate water infrastructure for thousands in urgent need, continue our visit to detainees and persons deprived of liberty, endeavor to search for and reunite people separated from their families, and assist in the prevention and treatment of sexual violence. Moreover, we maintain a dialogue with all parties to armed conflicts in the country to ensure that international humanitarian law and other applicable legal norms are respected and applied in the conduct of operations. Respect for IHL by all parties to conflict is imperative to prevent the destruction of civilian property and critical infrastructure, limit humanitarian suffering, and save lives. It furthermore creates an environment that can facilitate the restoration of peace and reconciliation amongst conflicting parties. Excellencies, some 18 months after the guns have fallen silent, the humanitarian needs in the Tigray region remain high. Many, especially in hard-to-reach areas, remain without adequate medical care, food, clean water and other supplies. In addition, the nutritional situation in the region is critical for pregnant and lactating women and children under the age of 5, as observed in ICRC-supported health posts. There is an urgent need today to accelerate and expand the humanitarian response in Tigray and in other parts of Ethiopia. The pledges you have made here today will prove essential to support the chronically underfunded humanitarian system and allow it to assist populations in need more effectively. Thank you.
I thank the ICRC for their statement, and I now give the floor to UNHCR.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to refer to another aspect of the humanitarian challenges we face in Ethiopia. For decades, Ethiopia has upheld a long tradition of welcoming those forced to flee. It is now home to close to 1 million refugees, making it one of Africa's largest refugee-hosting countries. Last year alone, Ethiopia welcomed over 150,000 new refugees from Somalia and Sudan, despite facing the challenges related to climate shocks, food insecurity, and internal displacement that we have already heard so much about this afternoon. The government of Ethiopia has adopted innovative responses consistent with the Global Compact on Refugees, and it made significant pledges at the 2023 Global Refugee Forum, including to improve refugees' access to documentation and livelihoods. And these are the kind of steps that are required to ensure resilience and sustainability over time. It is a country where, instead of new refugee camps being established, efforts are underway to create integrated settlements. Early engagement of some development actors and from the private sector is taking place, but more is needed to strengthen these efforts. Let me point to one example of where progress has already been made. In Melkedida, a remote border area, host to over 200,000 Somali refugees and a host population of more than 500,000 people, an innovative approach means refugees and host communities are all included in available services and all benefit from investment in infrastructure and livelihoods. This focus on inclusion and self-reliance has not only brought the two communities together, but helped to improve living conditions for all. This is the humanitarian development nexus in action. However, severe funding shortages have created significant gaps overall for displaced people across the country. For example, many of the women and girls recently arrived from Sudan who were survivors of gender-based violence cannot receive adequate legal, medical, or psychosocial support. If the promises from the international community that have shared responsibility for refugees, support to Ethiopia, which is delivering on a global common good, are not followed through upon, progress made so far to advance protection, resilience, and solutions will be threatened. We have to ensure both funding in humanitarian efforts that will save lives and, at the same time, medium to long-term investments that will support improved services and livelihoods for both refugees and host communities. Like WHO and other agencies, UNHCR faces significant funding shortfalls. Let me thank those donors which are contributing specifically to programs in Ethiopia, but also which are supporting UN pooled funds like the SURF and the EHF, or which provide flexible funding which we can then use where it's most needed, including today in Ethiopia. Thank you.
I thank UNHCR for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of UNFPA.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin by thanking all the speakers for their remarks, pledges, and calls to support humanitarian assistance in Ethiopia. As has been noted, the war in Ethiopia has left the health system nearing collapse. Essential equipment, medicine, and supplies were looted or destroyed on a massive scale, and functioning health facilities are operating with insufficient staff and equipment. This has been devastating, especially for pregnant women and for all women and girls in need of sexual and reproductive health services. Conflict and the breakdown of social support structures and networks has also led to increased risks of gender-based violence. Women and girls are most at risk. As a proportion of all cases of rape that have been reported, 39% of the survivors are under 18 years old. This year, a staggering 7.2 million people in Ethiopia are in need of GBV services. However, to date, the GBV sector has received less than 1% of the funding needed for 2024. This woeful lack of funding is preventing the delivery of essential services, including clinical support, mental health and psychosocial support, and legal assistance for survivors of rape. Just 2% of the required safe houses and 7% of the required one-stop centers are currently operational. There is an immediate need for interagency reproductive health kits, including post-rape treatment kits, as well as dignity kits for 1.4 million people. However, just 20% of the necessary funding for these vital items is available. Despite the challenges, UNFPA and its partners are continuing to deliver life-saving reproductive health and gender-based violence services in Ethiopia, and we thank the donors and member states who are supporting this work. The pledges that have been made today cannot come soon enough. It is evident that we need to do more, and we must show the women and girls in Ethiopia that they are not forgotten. Thank you.
I thank UNFPA for their statement and now give the floor to UNICEF.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. UNICEF extends sincere appreciation to the government of Ethiopia and the United Kingdom for hosting this crucial pledging event. The urgency of our mission cannot be overstated as we confront a convergence of crises in Ethiopia: conflict, the El Niño-driven drought, flooding, disease outbreaks, and malnutrition that collectively endanger the lives and future of its people, particularly its children. As is often the case, children bear the brunt of these crises, with families driven by vulnerability resorting to coping strategies like child marriage, reducing food intake, and pulling children out of school. In January and February 2024, severe acute malnutrition admissions rate surged in drought-affected regions, including Tigray, Afar, and parts of Amhara and Amoromia. Projections indicate an astonishing 1 million children will suffer from acute malnutrition this year, alongside with 350,000 malnourished pregnant and lactating women. In addition, outbreaks of disease like measles, cholera, malaria, dengue fever further exacerbate the humanitarian situation. To address the multiple crises, UNICEF and partners, in strong collaboration with the government, are scaling up our multi-sectoral response. Children need clean water to mitigate the spread of disease like cholera. Families need access to basic health care and nutritional services. And displaced children need access to education and child protection. So it is paramount we focus on all essential needs. We must also be forward-looking, investing in resilience, building, and climate adaptation to mitigate the impact of future shocks. More critically, we need to find a peaceful way forward to address the unresolved disputes so we can reach all children in need, no matter where they are. UNICEF and its partners urgently requires $535 million to ensure we can respond in time and at scale to deliver life-saving humanitarian assistance to 11 million people, including 8 million children. However, 90% funding gap threatens our efforts. I'd also like to take an opportunity to acknowledge and thank our partners who have already stepped up and supported UNICEF's response, including supporting flexible funding and UNICEF's Global Humanitarian Thematic Fund to provide timely and equitable humanitarian assistance. Madam Moderator, distinguished delegates, the time to act is now. The children of Ethiopia cannot wait. Let us reaffirm our commitment to their well-being and future. I thank you.
I thank UNICEF for their statement and give the floor to the representative of UNOPS.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Minister, Excellencies, dear colleagues, we meet again in increasingly complex times. Recognizing the continued efforts of the government and partners to address the vulnerabilities caused by climate and conflict, we must work together to sustainably address the critical situation in Ethiopia. UNOPS has been privileged to work with the government of Ethiopia for over 14 years, responding to the needs and challenges as they evolve. Since 2015, we've been working with an expanded group of partners, including the World Bank Group, UNHCR, UNECA, the US, Japan, Italy, Gavi and the Global Fund, and have delivered over $250 million in procurement, infrastructure and project management across sectors including health, livelihoods and emergency relief and recovery. Building on the market stabilisation strategy of wheat importation during the pandemic, we're now helping restore basic social services in Tigray region. With support from the bank, we've delivered over 750,000 kilos of seed varieties and 1.1 million kilos of fertilisers to over 65,000 farming households. On infrastructure, we've rehabilitated 25 health centres and schools, 33 wash facilities and installed and maintained significant cold chain equipment to strengthen public health preparedness and response. In support of IDPs and host communities, we've rehabilitated health centres in the Koloji camp and in West Oromia, Sazigar village, and also in the Benishangul Gumuz region. There are a few examples where intentionality wins, so we can integrate recovery projects with proactive and complementary planning. By addressing immediate needs and laying the groundwork for sustainable transition, we can mitigate the compounding humanitarian impacts in the longer run. The integration of humanitarian and development initiatives and funding is vital to avoid fragmentation and short-term solutions. The negative impacts of these systemic issues are being lived every day in the Waridas and districts around the world. With 200 people on the ground, UNOPS Ethiopia remains ready to provide additional operational capacity to help the government and partners supporting the people of Ethiopia. Thank you.
I thank UNOPS for their statement and now give the floor to the representative of World Vision Ethiopia.
Thank you. Let me start off also by thanking the UK government, UN OCHA and the government of Ethiopia for bringing us all together. We have heard many needs, so I won't take the time to emphasize the needs, but as a country director living in Ethiopia for the last 4 years, and as an organization that focuses on children and community-led solutions, we work across all regions in the country. So I have had the opportunity to see firsthand the heartbreaking need, as well as examples of hope that communities deliver. So in the 2 minutes that I have, I'd like to just highlight a couple of points. We've been working with the government of Ethiopia at all levels on long-term, multi-sectoral, rural community development programs at Woreda or at district level for many years. And in the recent years, we've also been working on large-scale humanitarian action and local peace-building efforts. I have personally been inspired by the solutions I've seen from hard-working local communities, youth, women, adolescents, as well as government partners at different levels, who have been the first responders to a lot of the challenges we're talking about today, who also have very good insights into what durable solutions should look like. I've personally been witnessed that your funding as donors makes a real difference. It has immediate effect, it has impact, and it has saved lives over the last couple of years. So as we look forward, our concern is to give attention to the scale and the urgency of the need in Ethiopia right now, because we believe that without attention and without resources, the ones that suffer are always the most vulnerable. There are solutions, so we are not today only talking about need. There are many solutions, and it's important to put them at the front. There are local and international organizations, as part of our Hingo network that my colleague Sophia represented today, who have stayed and delivered alongside communities in very difficult situations, and we continue and are committed to do so, often with very meager resources. There are also many cost-effective, empowering, locally contextualized approaches that can really be game changers in addressing malnutrition with little resources, local protection efforts, food security solutions, education during emergencies, even examples of how the humanitarian development and peace nexus works at the local level across Ethiopia. We are committed to continue working with the government of Ethiopia and all partners here on lasting solutions that really address the underlying causes we're discussing. So, while today we are here to talk about saving lives and the need is so urgent, we believe that the real solution is about coming together to renew our joint commitment to strengthen the resilience of communities across Ethiopia and a commitment to lasting peace. And this takes a commitment by all of us. Thank you.
I thank World Vision Ethiopia for their statement, and I now give the floor to Save the Children.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 12 million children are in need of humanitarian assistance in Ethiopia in 2024, and this number is rapidly growing. I would like to highlight three dimensions of a humanitarian crisis children are currently facing in Ethiopia. First, education. As we saw in the video at the beginning of this event, disasters and conflict had a huge impact on education in Ethiopia. It is estimated that over 7 million children in Ethiopia are currently out of school as a result of conflict and disaster. However, in 2023, only 3% of the humanitarian funding was allocated to education in emergency. It was great to hear in the opening remarks of His Excellency Andrew Mitchell that part of the UK allocation of humanitarian funding will go to education in emergency, and we urge other donors to support education. Second dimension of this crisis is malnutrition. Several figures have already been stated by different speakers in this event. We can see global acute malnutrition increasing very rapidly in several regions in Ethiopia. If severe acute malnutrition is not treated, it is a major factor of child mortality. And chronic malnutrition stunting has long life consequences on a child development. Therefore, the support to nutrition intervention, prevention and treatment is needed, rapidly needed, to prevent a deteriorating situation. Third dimension of this crisis, child protection. There are close to 1 million refugees in Ethiopia and over 4 million IDPs. More than half of this population of refugees and IDPs are children with acute protection needs, including the prevention of sexual and gender-based violence. Funding child protection programs, which are also massively underfunded in Ethiopia, is also urgently needed. In 2023, Save the Children, with the support of donors, our humanitarian program reached 6.8 million people in Ethiopia. We want to scale up our intervention, and we urgently need funding to do so. And also, I support the remarks of my colleagues from World Vision to do this in a way which builds the resilience of community is absolutely needed. Thank you very much.
I thank Save the Children for their statement, and I thank all of our distinguished guests and speakers for your remarks, for your expressions of solidarity, and for your generous pledges of support. We're now going to move on to our closing session, and I now come back to our distinguished co-hosts and panelists for a final question, which is, what is the one message you would want us to take away from today's event that would steer us in the right direction going forward? And we will begin with His Excellency, Minister Amde.
Thank you again. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of you for your support and solidarity. Your support amply demonstrated our shared commitment and partnership. We highly value it, and I've taken the suggestions that have been proposed by so many delegates, and your suggestion where we have to do more is indeed well taken. Ethiopia is a country of many contrasts and a variety, I would say a mosaic. On the one hand, you see a burgeoning city, a very developing city in the capital and as well as in the region. On the other, you see disasters as well. On the one hand, we welcome millions of refugees from our neighboring countries. On the other, we are very much inundated by internal conflicts, mainly fueled by extremist elements residing elsewhere. But having said that, I want to take this opportunity to announce that the government of Ethiopia has earmarked and allocated $250 million to mitigate this disaster. And I'll take from the words of my Prime Minister Abiy. He said that he will stop any development project in order to save lives in Ethiopia. There is no excuse to it. That's one thing. And secondly, I would like to announce two very critical interventions that the government is doing. The first one is, this is part of the sustainable solution that we have introduced over the last couple of years. This is what we call it Ethiopian Green Legacy Program, that serves, on the one hand, it's kind of a paid effort to combat desertification on the one hand, and also enhance our food system through mass horticultural production. We have planted 32 billion trees over the last 3 years as part of our commitment to mitigate climate disaster. And we have seen a lot of progress along that line. The second is, we have introduced a promising food system and nutrition program called the Bounty of the Basket, or they call it the Bounty of the Farm. This program provides small and medium-scale producers, particularly in dairy, poultry. This has indeed made very much significance, particularly in solving our challenges when it comes to food insecurity. So again, thank you for your support. And as I said earlier, asking for support is very painful and agonizing. But it's something that we have to do it. Something that we have to do for our families. Because the government, and as many of you mentioned, as a prime duty bearer, it's indeed our responsibility to overcome this challenge. And we will make sure that hunger and famine will be history as far as Ethiopia is concerned. Thank you for your support again.
Thank you, Minister, and for sharing the government's real tangible commitment to improving the lives and addressing the humanitarian needs of its people. And so, Carl, I'm coming to you. What would you like us to remember?
Well, I think first, I'm not going to use the football example again, but I mean the window to avert a catastrophic escalation of hunger and malnutrition is closing, but it can be done. As I mentioned, in this past 3 months, we have delivered to 3 million people in a completely state-of-the-art new food assistance program. And so what we now need is urgent funding to be able to sustain that program and to scale it up. And at the same time, we need to redouble investments in resilience to make sure that we break this vicious cycle of food insecurity. Let me also take this opportunity to really thank my team on the ground, led by Chris Nikoi, who is here with us today, for heroic efforts over this past year to turn around our program and to get back up and running in the way that we have. And I will also like to extend our appreciation to the entire UN team, led by the RC, who is also with us, and all humanitarians, national and international, for their tireless efforts in their day-to-day efforts. So, Ministers, Excellencies, colleagues, WFP, you can count on WFP. Our commitment to address the food insecurity situation in Ethiopia remains steadfast and unwavering. And I'd like to thank you, Chair, and all the organizers for this opportunity to join this distinguished panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carl. And now I turn to you, Sophie. Can you share your closing thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. Your Excellencies, Ethiopian government representatives, ambassadors, permanent representative, as well as partners. Thank you very much for your pledges and for the Ethiopian government for your commitment and also for your pledge. We're very grateful for today's pledges, even though they fall short, significantly short of what is needed. With your support, we have saved millions of lives over the years, and we have also, unfortunately, and we have to recognize that, kept them in a cycle of perpetual state of vulnerability and aid dependency. For NGOs, what is at stake, or what are at stake, are the lives and the livelihoods of upwards of 21 million people whose hopes and fears are pinned on this conference. And I'm afraid that their fears are prevailing. The good news is that national and international NGOs have operational presence in the far reaches of Ethiopia and providing protection and delivering essential services, defying all security and other challenges. The good news is also that we know what is needed and what works. What we need is direct, predictable, flexible, and long-term funding and an enabling operating environment. As you go back to your respective capitals, and hopefully with commitments honored, we hope that you can up your ambitions and also look for ways to continue to support crisis-affected communities in Ethiopia, promote local solutions, bolster early recovery, and build resilience. I thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. And now, Joyce, what is your takeaway message for our guests? Yes.
Thank you very much, moderator. What is key message? I thought, since we have all gathered here because of Ethiopia people, I should actually use an Amharic proverb to summarize what I've heard today as a key message. My advanced apologies to native Amharic speakers, because I'm going to butcher what I'm going to say, but I will translate in English. The proverb says, Diber Yabir and Besayasa, and translation, literal translation, is when spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. When spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. It suggests that when people come together, as we have done this afternoon, we can accomplish formidable tasks and overcome great challenges, symbolized by catching a lion. It emphasizes the power of unity and collective effort in achieving shared goals, reflecting a spirit of cooperation and solidarity among individuals or groups. And our shared goal is the people we serve, Ethiopian people. So I want to really thank, on behalf of OCHA and the humanitarian community, ISC members, our deepest thanks for all the pledges. I am very pleased that 21 announcements of financial support were made today for almost US $630 million. Thank you. Thank you. We understand this is just the beginning, and we hope for continued and increased support throughout the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joyce. And now I turn to you, Minister Mitchell. We've heard quite a few analogies, starting with the football and the glass. We've heard about, we have the windows shutting. I learned a new one today about catching lions with the strength of united spider webs. And so now to bookend our closing session, what is your takeaway to our distinguished guests?
Well, Your Excellencies, first of all, let me thank the UN and all colleagues involved on the platform here for their efforts and for organising this extremely important session. And Britain is proud to honour its close relationship with Ethiopia by co-chairing this session. And today we have raised funding which will contribute towards meeting the most critical needs of Ethiopia over these next 6 months. And today we have shown the impact of our collective endeavours and the value of working together, and I want to thank all those who have given generously today and promised funds. It's a lot of money, but less than what is required to meet the total humanitarian appeal for 2024, so the job is not yet finished. And I want to thank all those who have come here today with pledges from their countries and their taxpayers. And can I urge those countries who have spoken up today, often with great passion, but without making any financial pledge, to put their money where their mouth has so eloquently been this afternoon. Unfortunately, fine words without funding don't help the little malnourished children I spent time with in Tigray. Sadly, eloquent endorsements by some of your excellencies without money attached don't feed unfed women and children. And alas, pious words without the backing of resources turn away empty-handed and unfed, starving people. Words of solidarity without financial support are quite simply empty words. Now, today is, of course, not just about money. It's also about drawing attention to this humanitarian crisis and reaching agreement on a set of concrete measures that can be taken to make sure that the response is as efficient and effective as possible and that the money goes further. We also need to continue to support Ethiopia by working together with the government, partners and civil society to strengthen resilience so we can eventually exit the cycle of humanitarian crises and focus on development once again for the people of Ethiopia. I thank you for your continued partnership. I'm quite certain that we can make a massive difference if we continue to work hard together. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you to all distinguished guests present, as well as those who have followed online. We're very appreciative of your expressions of solidarity with the government and people of Ethiopia. This concludes our meeting. Thank you.
We're almost bang on time.
Why? So I will speak in Amharic. Hold on. ለሆድ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ። I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆድህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገልሃል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው። እንደ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው፣ አንተንም ይገልሃል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you. Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting him. Under genocide by Abiy Ahmed, there is no doubt. Abiy Ahmed genocide Amhara in Ethiopia. Please share. 70 million Amhara under state emergency. Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait, sir. Give me 1 minute. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing. Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider. Stop. Abiy Ahmed, he killed us. Why? So I will speak in Amharic. Hold on. ለሆድ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ። I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆድህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገልሃል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው። እንደ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው፣ አንተንም ይገልሃል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you. Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting him. Under genocide by Abiy Ahmed, there is no drought. Abiy Ahmed genocide Amhara in Ethiopia. Please share. 70 million Amhara under state emergency. Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait, sir. Give me 1 minute. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing. Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider. Stop. Abiy Ahmed, he killed us. Why? So I will speak in Amharic. Hold on. ለሆድ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ። I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆድህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገልሃል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው። እንደ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው፣ አንተንም ይገልሃል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you. Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting him. Under genocide by Abiy Ahmed, there is no drought. Abiy Ahmed genocide Amhara in Ethiopia. Please share. 70 million Amhara under state emergency. Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait, sir. Give me 1 minute. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing.
Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider. Stop!
Abiy Ahmed, he killed us. Why? Why? ተወስታጥቂ አውርስቲክ ሚናማሪ ሆዳም በእውነት ለሆዲ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ። I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆዲህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገላል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው። አንተንም ይገላል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you.
Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting him.
Under genocide by Abiy Ahmed, there is no drought. Abiy Ahmed genocide Amhara in Ethiopia. Please share. 70 million Amhara under state emergency. Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait, sir. Give me 1 minute. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing. Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider. Stop.
Abiy Ahmed, he killed us. Why? ተወስታጥቂ አውርስቲክ ሚናማሪ ሆዳም በእውነት ለሆዲ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ። I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆዲህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገላል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው። አንተንም ይገላል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you.
Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting him.
Under genocide by Abiy Ahmed, there is no drought. Abiy Ahmed genocide Amhara in Ethiopia. Please share. 70 million Amhara under state emergency. Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait, sir. Give me 1 minute. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing. Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider. Stop.
Abiy Ahmed, he killed us. Why? ተወስታጥቂ አውርስቲክ ሚናማሪ ሆዳም በእውነት ለሆዲ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ። I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆዲህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገላል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው። አንተንም ይገላል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you.
Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting him.
Under genocide by Abiy Ahmed, there is no drought. Abiy Ahmed genocide Amhara in Ethiopia. Please share. 70 million Amhara under state emergency. Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait, sir. Wait, give me 1 minute. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing. Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider. Stop.
Abiy Ahmed, he killed us. Why? Tostatki, I will speak in Amharic. Hodam, Hodat, ለሆድ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ። I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆድህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገላል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው። እንደ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው፣ አንተንም ይገላል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you.
Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting him.
Under genocide by Abiy Ahmed, there is no drought. Abiy Ahmed genocide Amhara in Ethiopia. Please share. 70 million Amhara under state emergency. Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait, sir. Wait, give me 1 minute. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing. Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider. Stop.
Abiy Ahmed, he killed us. Why? Tostatki, I will speak in Amharic. Hodam, Hodat, ለሆድ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ። I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆድህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገላል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው። እንደ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው፣ አንተንም ይገላል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you.
Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting him.
Under genocide by Abiy Ahmed, there is no drought. Abiy Ahmed genocide Amhara in Ethiopia. Please share. 70 million Amhara under state emergency. Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait, sir. Wait, give me 1 minute. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing. Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider. Stop.
Abiy Ahmed, he killed us. Why? Tostatki, I will speak in Amharic. Hodam, Hodat, ለሆድ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ። I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆድህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገላል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው። እንደ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው፣ አንተንም ይገላል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you.
Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting him.
Under genocide by Abiy Ahmed, there is no drought. Abiy Ahmed genocide Amhara in Ethiopia. Please share. 70 million Amhara under state emergency. Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait, sir. Give me 1 minute. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing. Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider. Stop.
Abiy Ahmed, he killed us. Why? Tostatki, I will speak in Amharic. Hodam, Hodat, ለሆድ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ. I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆድህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገላል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው። አንተንም ይገላል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you.
Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting
Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing. Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider.
He killed us. Why? Amaran tasdidallah. I don't want to speak English. I want to speak Amharic. ለሆድህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገላል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው። አንተንም ይገላል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you.
የታጠጌታ ሆበል የካሳያለ መድረንግል የዘነሆበል ሲያምሰዋለ ኢትዮጵያነት ለሆበል አስመሰከረ ጥበብ እያለ ሆበል እድገት እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበል ቴዲን እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበል ቴዲን እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበል ቴዲን እያለ አንቺን ልበያችን የቋራ ጀግና ቴዲናና አሞተ ኩሉ ስመጥሩ እስኪ ልነሳና መቅደላ ልክሰሰው ኃይልክሰሰው ያኔ ሰው አንበሳ ወዴት አደረሰው ሞት አልነበረም ወይ የሚያስፈራው ለሰው ኃይለሰው ኧረ አንበሳው ቴዲ ነክሳሱን ወረሰው አይጎረሰው ታሪክ አለኝ የሚናገር ዓመት እስከ ዓመት የሚዘከር አንድ ለእናቱ ሽለጠላቱ መይሳው ካሳ ሞቱ ኩራቱ ታሪክ አለኝ የሚነገር ዓመት እስከ ዓመት የካሳያለ መድንገድ የዘለሆ በለስ ያምሰዋለ ኢትዮጵያነት ነሆበ አስመሰከረ ጥበብ እያለ ነሆበ እድገት እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበ ቴዲን እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበ ቴዲን እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበ ቴዲን እያለ ሆበ አንቺ ጎንደሬ ናገርሽ ጎንደሬ ብለው ቢጠሩኝ አቦ ደሳለኝ ኮራሁኝ የቋራው አንበሳ የቴዲ ሲሉኝ አይ ሲሉኝ ኮራሁኝ የእምነት የሃይማኖት የ44 ታቦታት ጎንደሬ ቢሉኝ
in Ethiopia, please share. 70 million Amhara under state emergency. Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait, sir. Give me 1 minute. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing. Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider. Stop.
Abiy Ahmed, he killed us. Why? Tostatki, I will speak in Amharic. Odam, በእውነት ለሆድ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ? I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆድህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገላል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው። አንተንም ይገላል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you.
Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting him.
Under genocide by Abiy Ahmed, there is no drought. Abiy Ahmed genocide Amhara in Ethiopia. Please share. 70 million Amhara under state emergency. Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait, sir. Give me 1 minute. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing. Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider. Stop.
Abiy Ahmed, he killed us. Why? Tostatki, I will speak in Amharic. Odam, በእውነት ለሆድ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ? I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆድህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገላል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው። አንተንም ይገላል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you.
Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting him.
የእምነት የሃይማኖት የአርባራት ታቦታት ጎንደር የቤሎኝ ሳመንኩኝ ደሳለኝ የነገሥታት አገር የፋሲል ከተማ መዲና ሲሉኝ ኮራሁኝ ጀገንኩኝ ኮራሁኝ ጀገንኩኝ ታሪክ አለኝ የሚናገር ዓመት እስከ ዓመት የሚዘከር አንድ ለእናቱ ሺ ለጠላቱ መይሳው ካሳ ሞቱ ኩራቱ ታሪክ አለኝ የሚናገር ዓመት እስከ ዓመት የሚዘከር አንድ ለእናቱ ሺ ለጠላቱ መይሳው ካሳ ሞቱ ኩራቱ ሆበል እያለ ሆበል እያለ ጌታ የተሳያለ መደንገል የዘነሆ ሲያምሰዋለ ኢትዮጵያነቱን ሆ አስመሰከረ ጥበብ እያለ ሆበል መልከት እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበል ቴዲን እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበል ቴዲን እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበል ቴዲን እያለ
ለሆድህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገድልሃል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው። የዶክተር አምባቸውን የገደለው እሱ ነው፣ አንተንም ይገድልሃል። ሪሊ ሼም ኦን ዩ፣ ሪሊ ሼም ኦን ዩ። አብይ ኪል 2 ሚሊዮን አማራ ኖት ኦፍ ፒፕል ሼም ኦን ዩ።
የቋራ ጀግና
Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violations.
እስኪ ልነሳና መደላለቅሰሰው አይልቅሰሰው
Abiy Ahmed is a dictator.
ያኔ ሰው አንበሳ ወዴት አደረሰው 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 ሞት አልነበረም ወይ የሚያስፈራው ለሰው ኃይለሰው ኃይለሰው አንበሳው ቴዲ ነፍሳሱን ጎረሰው አይጎረሰው 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 ታሪክ አለኝ የሚናገር ዓመት እስከ ዓመት የሚዘከር አንድ ለእናቱ ሺ ለጠላቱ መይሳው ካሳ ሞቱ ኩራቱ ታሪክ አለኝ የሚናገር ዓመት እስከ ዓመት የሚዘከር አንድ ለእናቱ ሺ ለጠላቱ መይሳው ካሳ ሞቱ ኩራቱ ሆበል እያለ ሆበል እያለ የታጠ ጌታ ሆበል የካሳያለ መደንገድ ሲያምሰዋለ ኢትዮጵያነትን ሆበል አስመሰከረ
Really shame on you. Really shame on you.
ማነው የሞተው ሆበል ቴዲን እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበል ቴዲን እያለ ማነው የሞተው
Promoting human rights violations in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violations in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed terrorist. Abiy Ahmed a dictator. Stop supporting.
Genocide Amhara in Ethiopia. Please share. Yesterday, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no doubt. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. People manage the ground. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop genocide in Amhara.
የእምነት የሃይማኖት የአርባራት ታቦታት ጎንደር የቢሉኝ ሳመንኩኝ ደስ አለኝ የነገሥታት አገር የፋሲል ከተማ መዲና ሲሉኝ ኮራሁኝ ጀገንኩኝ ኮራሁኝ
Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Lots of people. Shame on you.
Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting him.
Under genocide by Abiy Ahmed, there is no drought. Abiy Ahmed genocide Amhara in Ethiopia. Please share. 70 million Amhara under state emergency. Yesterday, today, 85 drone attack on Amhara. There is no drought. 3.5 million displaced Amhara. We can manage the drought. Wait, sir. Wait, give me 1 minute. Stop Amhara genocide. Stop sponsoring Amhara killing. Abiy Ahmed is a genocider. Ethiopian Prime Minister is a genocider. Stop.
Abiy Ahmed, he killed us. Why? Tostatki, I will speak in Amharic. Hodam, በእውነት ለሆድ ተገዝተህ አማራን ታስገድላለህ? I don't want to speak English. I want to speak in Amharic. ለሆድህ ተገዝተህ አታፍርም? አብይ አህመድ ይገላል እንደነ ዶክተር አምባቸው። እንደ ዶክተር አምባቸው የገደለው እሱ ነው፣ አንተንም ይገላል። Really shame on you. Really shame on you. Sir, they have been killed 2 million Tigrayans. Amhara, lot of people. Shame on you.
Promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Supporting Abiy Ahmed is promoting human rights violation in Ethiopia. Stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is terrorist. Abiy Ahmed is a dictator. Stop supporting.
ታሪክ አለኝ የሚናገር ዓመት እስከ ዓመት የሚዘከር አንድ ለእናቱ ሺህ ለጠላቱ መይሳው ካሳ ሞቱ ኩራቱ ታሪክ አለኝ የሚናገር ዓመት እስከ ዓመት የሚዘከር አንድ ለእናቱ ሺህ ለጠላቱ መይሳው ካሳ ሞቱ ኩራቱ ሆበል እያለ ሆበል እያለ የታጠ ጌታ ሆበል የካሳያለ መደንገል የዘለ ሆበል ሲያመሰዋለ ኢትዮጵያነትን ሆበል አስመሰከረ ጥበብ እያለ ሆበል እድገት እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበል ቴዲን እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበል ቴዲን እያለ ማነው የሞተው ሆበል ቴዲን እያለ ሆበል አንቺ ጎንደሬ ጎንደሬ ብለው ቢጠሩኝ አቦ ደስ አለኝ ኮራሁኝ የቋራው አንበሳ የቴዲ ሲሉኝ አይ ሲሉኝ ኮራሁኝ የእምነት የሃይማኖት የ44 ታቦታት ጎንደሬ ቢሉኝ ሳመንኩኝ ደስ አለኝ የነገሥታት አገር የፋሲል ከተማ መዲና ሲሉኝ ኮራሁኝ ጀገንኩኝ ኮራሁኝ ጀገንኩኝ ታሪክ አለኝ የሚናገር ዓመት እስከ ዓመት የሚዘከር አንድ ለናቱ ሽለተላቱ መይሳው ካሳ ሞቱ ኩራቱ ታሪክ አለኝ የሚናገር ዓመት እስከ ዓመት የሚዘከር አንድ ለናቱ ሽለተላቱ መይሳው ካሳ ሞቱ ኩራቱ ሆበል እያለ ሆበል እያለ የታጠቅ ጌታ ሆበል የከሳያለ መድረንገል የዘነ ሆበል ሲያምሰዋለ ኢትዮጵያነቱን ሆበል አስመሰ